I am not an expert in Formula 1, nor do I have the credentials to prove the things that I say. Everything in the video comes from my interpretation of what's shown as a viewer and a fan. The footage in the background is my horrible attempt at learning the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix racetrack, but I believe that this isn't the revised version that they actually raced in. 1 week ago marked the end of Formula 1's 2021 season. The last race that happened in Abu Dhabi was so amazing that I just had to make a video on it. I'll be talking about the race itself, the result, and my closing thoughts. In case you didn't already know, Max Verstappen, number 33, driver for Red Bull Racing Honda, has officially won the F1 2021 Drivers' Championship as a result of his performance in the last race of the season at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Max has driven supremely well, as some people would say. Throughout this whole year, Max has, for the most part, driven as best as he possibly could in any given situation. Whether it's testing setups during free practice, nailing that pole lap, or performing at peak levels during Sunday's race, Max has given his absolute all. With a spectacular car and talent, he did have some bad luck when it comes to random tire blowouts, wheel locks, and his battle versus the Mercedes duo. Nonetheless, had he not driven as well as he did throughout the last season, he most definitely would not have been in a situation that he was in during the last Grand Prix to get the chance of winning it all, and it rightfully paid off. When it came to ruthless driving and strategic maneuvers, Max definitely showed that side of him more than Lewis did. While most of the time it did not pay off, I like to argue that the race-winning overtake down the DRS zone at turn 6 was an accumulation of all his efforts thus far. Ricardo definitely would have approved of that lunge. Luck was on his side that week. As much as people hated Max for not keeping it on track, he did so for this whole race. One of the greatest team performances I've ever seen thus far throughout the 2021 season would have to be Sergio Checo Perez's fight against Lewis. Max had pitted for hards on lap 14, which would have resulted in a free pit window for Lewis. I'll talk about that later. During laps 20 and 21, Checo fought with Lewis, with each other overtaking themselves a couple of times. At the beginning of lap 20, Verstappen was 8.7 seconds behind Hamilton. After the final overtake by Lewis on Checo, Checo in nearly 2 laps was able to slow Lewis down just enough for Verstappen to be within his DRS and only 1.3 seconds behind Lewis. On lap 54, Nicholas Latifi was fighting on track against Mick Schumacher, which unfortunately resulted in a moderately sized crash with only 5 remaining laps to go. At that point in time, Max was 12 seconds behind Lewis. During the safety car period, Max opted to pit for softs. I mentioned Lewis's free pit window earlier because had Checo and Lewis not fought, which ultimately let Max catch up, the 12-second gap would have most likely been a 20-second gap or more. This would have been a free pit window for Lewis. This free pit window was important for Mercedes because regardless of whether Max chose to pit or not, Lewis would get to pit for softs to counter any Red Bull strategy. Because Max was only 12 seconds behind Lewis, Lewis and his team had to decide whether to pit for softs and chase Max during the last lap for the victory, or pit and hope Lewis would hold off Max for one more lap. For the first 2 laps during the safety car period, lap cars were not allowed to overtake. This meant that there were more laps to be done during this period, which lessens the amount of laps Max was able to have to overtake Lewis. At lap 56, lapped cars up to Carlos Sainz, in terms of where the cars were positioned in, were finally able to overtake the safety car and move back to the end of the grid. By lap 57, the safety car period had ended and the race had begun once again. The absolute turning point of the whole race came down to turn 5. Prior to that turn, Max had DRS and slipstream on Lewis and made a very brave dive on the inside of turn 5. This nosedive straight on the inside was what gave Max the lead heading towards the turn 7 afterwards. In the second DRS zone, Lewis tried his best with the DRS and slipstream to overtake Max, but unfortunately his super old hard tires just wasn't good enough. Had Lewis been on softs or even mediums, there would have been a good chance that he could have either overtaken Max or at least prevented the turn by's overtake. Either way, it was such a Max thing to do, and it was even crazier that the move paid off. A very dangerous and risky overtake, but at the end of the day, all that matters is that he stuck with it and got Max the victory. There's not much more to say about the race. Considering what was at stake, it didn't really feel like there were any more important key points. Oh, Yuki Tsunoda did get P4, which was not only above his teammate Pierre Gasly, but also his best performance in F1 thus far. Very impressive for the Japanese Honda engine AlphaTauri driver, isn't it? Next, I want to talk about some of the topics that have sparked my attention after the race. Besides winning and losing the championship, there was a clear loser in all of this, the FIA, more notably, Michael Masi. It comes to no surprise for anyone that watches Formula 1 when it comes to unclear rules and inconsistent penalties. Once again, Mercedes and Red Bull were called into the steward's office. Mercedes were vehemently against what happened during the safety car period, which, at the end, FIA's decision resulted in their protest not upheld. As it currently stands, Max has become the 2021 World Champion. Afterwards, Toto Wolff was seen partying. Someone said that it was from 2020, but either way, winning the Constructors was still an amazing feat. Some say that Max only won because Latifi crashed and brought out the safety car. This of course gave Latifi a lot of backlash, and although I don't have anything to say on this topic, at least Red Bull, funny enough, offered Latifi free Red Bull for life. So that's cool. I wonder if King Latifi would take up Christian Horner's offer. If he doesn't want it, can I have it? Carlos Sainz had an amazing race, achieved third place and only one of the few of his podiums that he actually achieved on merit. For those that aren't aware, a sizable number of Carlos's podiums came as a result of someone else's penalty. His podium at Abu Dhabi solidified his 5th position in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of not only his friend and rival Lando Norris, but also his teammate Charles Leclerc. In just his first year in Ferrari, he has beaten his teammate who was considered to be Ferrari's golden boy in the current era. With the end of the season comes F1 drivers leaving. Both Alfa Romeo drivers Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi will depart from not only their team, but also from Formula 1. Although this may be their last time leaving the paddock as a driver, I hope that they come back even for just a brief moment for us fans to see. Kimi in his career has had 348 starts, 1,873 points, 103 podiums, 21 wins, and 1 World Drivers' Championship. We will miss the Iceman. We'll also miss Formula Jesus, but that's for another reason. Here are some reactions to the results of the race. One is from George Russell and the other is from Nicholas Hamilton, both strongly against the FIA's decision rather than the result of the race itself, and rightfully so. Regardless of the fact, both congratulated Max, but angry at how it had happened. For a viewer's point of view, it was nothing short of spectacular. But for those that know about drivers and regulations, he can't just be happy at everything that has transpired. I'm excited to see what George can do in a Mercedes next year and for more years to come. I don't have much else to say in regards to the race or the season as a whole. It's quite hard to put my feelings into words with all the things considered. I got into Formula 1 during this year, sometime before the Monaco Grand Prix, and I have been addicted to the sport ever since. As I felt like I wouldn't fully benefit from F1 TV that late into the season, I had made a decision to wait until next year to do so. So my knowledge of F1 and the competition itself mostly came from F1's YouTube channel. Although I'm still new to the sport, I love watching Formula 1. Whether if it's the current or past races, as a gamer, I also watch drivers like Jarno Opmeer, as he is, in my opinion, the premier F1 2021 gamer to watch. As bad as I am at the game, I can't help but watch Jarno's videos as he's just so amazing at what he does, and his commentary really helps me learn the game and the sport outside of the game. If you like the video, please give me a like. Although I'm not that knowledgeable enough to answer any technical questions, if you have anything else you want to say or anything you want to ask, feel free to ask me in the comments. If you want to support me, then make sure to subscribe. I make videos for fun and it'll help me a lot. Once again, stay safe and take care.